Hello everyone, how's it going? Dr. Incompetent here, and let's play some Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup in this 2022 guide for a complete beginner to this, my favorite of all the roguelikes, the classic Dungeon Crawl. So, I'm going to show you how to play online. All you need to do is Google DCSS Play Online or Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup, and you'll come to the website that we are at here. The website address for playing online is crawl, C-R-A-W-L devils, DEVELZ.org, and you'll get to this screen right here. Now, you can play this game online like I'm going to show you, or with this link down below, you can download an offline client to play whenever you like. The only advantages of playing online are that you get scored and ranked against other players, and that you can pick up and resume your game wherever you find a browser, and you can log in. Additionally, it kind of like secures your game so that people know that the victory that you achieved with it is legitimate and hasn't been tampered with in any way. However you choose to do it, I'm going to be showing you the online version of the game right now. So you click this big green button, and it will just like automatically locate you to one of the several servers. I get this Midwestern one, and I'm logged in already as Dr. Incomp. This is my alternate account. I'll show you, if you're interested, in the description below, I have links to Let's Plays of this game for years now, for different versions of the game with many different character types, so you can see different species and backgrounds going through the game if you're curious about different combinations. But this is going to be us just starting a brand new character, and this guide is meant for people who have never played the game before, or people who have played but not for years, so you can see all of the changes that have been made, or people who are playing right now but are just, running into some difficulty. And that's the name of the game. It is a difficult game, but there's a lot that we can learn to get ourselves better at it. Another cool thing about playing online is, like, you see right down here, the leaderboard. You can see other people's games, like what level they are, what combination they are, what species and background they are, where they are, and you can then go into their game and watch if you want. But what we're going to do is go ahead and play on version 0.28, which as of July of 2022 is the current version. Now, one of the things that makes this game so sensational, and why I've loved it and played it for over 10 years, is that it's constantly updated. Below this 0.28, you can see that there are links for previous versions of the game if you want to play with older rule sets. And then above it, where it says trunk, it's updated daily with things that they're experimenting with and considering for the next release of the game, which would be 0.29 in this case. So you can play on whatever you want. I'm going to be showing you the latest version because it's stable, and that's what I like to play on. Now, before we get into it, I'm also going to show you one more thing, which is right here next to the latest version. It says Edit RC, okay? And that means to edit your config. I'm going to click on this, and it opens up a box like this, and I'm just going to type a few things into this. Okay, so I've gone ahead and filled this in with just 4 commands. There used to be a lot more that you would have to put into the game, but you don't need to do it anymore because things have changed. So these 4 configuration file alterations are things that I personally use and recommend. However, if you want to just dive into the game without doing this, it's not necessary, but all you have to do is just basically type what you see on the screen. So it is auto fight _stop for this first command, and then you just say equals 80, okay? And so what this means is that when you're using auto fight, you will be unable to auto fight further if you dip below 80% health, okay? The game defaults to 50% health, which I do not find to be high enough. I would like to be at higher health before I stop before I keep auto fighting, so I put it at 80. That's very high for some people. You could mess around with that, put it at 70, whatever you want, but that is my recommendation. All right. Next thing is explore underscore auto underscore rest equals true. Okay. And so what this means is that if you push O to auto explore, and I'll tell you about all the key commands as we go, before you do so with this configuration, you will rest to full health. So this will prevent you from accidentally auto-exploring and wandering into trouble when you're not at full health. Explore underscore delay, okay, equals 20. What this means is that if you don't have this on, you will push auto-explore and you will like instantly teleport to the location. This slows it down slightly, so your character will move very, very fast, auto-exploring the level, but you will see what direction you're going, and it helps me orient myself better in the dungeon. It's not necessary. You don't have to do it. You could make it faster or slower, but that's what I like. And then show more equals false. I just do this for convenience. What this does is basically there's lots of times in the game where it will want to stop the text and will just say, hey, you have to push enter to proceed with the game because I want you to read all this stuff first. And I don't really care for that most of the time, so I do this so that it will just spit out the text at me, and then I can go back and read it if I want, without having to manually, push enter to feed the text even further. So these are the 4 options that I use. You could Google this, find out a whole bunch more on this, but I'm not going to get any deeper into this before we start playing the game, because I like to keep it pretty simple, and these are only 4 lines, and they will improve your quality. If you're going to do anything, the first 2. The second 2 are more like quality of life or just features that I like. The top 2 are helping you survive more readily. All right? So you click Save. Then what you're going to do is just click where it says DCSS 0.28 latest version like this. And it will load the game, and you'll see some random loading screen as it's doing that, and then you will come to this screen right here where it says please select your species. Okay, and so again, if you're new to the game, what this means is you get to choose what kind of creature you are. If you want to be just like a human, or you want to be a Minotaur, or maybe you want to be an octopus, or, a mummy, or an ogre, or whatever. You can pick any of these, okay? And if you're returning to the game, you'll notice that there are many new species in the game, and some species have been taken out. Species that you are familiar with have also probably been reworked, or at least many of them have, okay? Now, they have done this in the recent years, and they've organized these starting species that you can choose based on difficulty, of play. So basically, anything in this column is going to be regarded as a simple choice because these are very strong. These intermediate choices are they have some pros, but they have some minuses, and they're a little bit harder to play. And then the advanced are if you want an extreme challenge in the game. So before we go any further, let's talk about what this game is. Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup, as I mentioned before, is a classic roguelike. That means it is a single-player role-playing game that involves you controlling a figure through a procedurally generated dungeon, and it is permadeath, which means if you die, your game is over, you lose everything, and you're starting over with this screen that you see here. Nothing is carried over between runs. It is extremely brutal. You will see on Reddit, for example, there is an entire section that is called YASD, yet another sad death, of people telling all the stories of the horrible ways that they've died, luckily, unluckily, badly, foolishly, on and on and on, because, and you need to know this up front, last I checked, the win rate of people who are playing this game, okay, of every time people boot it up and they start a new character, the win rate is sub 1%. All right? That means that less than 1 time out of 100, people win. Now, there are some players who are extremely good, who have way better percentages than that, but just taking the entire population into account, that's what you're up against. So right away, you need to understand that you're going to die a lot in this game. It's just part of it, but don't feel bad because everybody is dying. I die in this game all the time, and I've played it for over 10 years, okay? That's just part of the learning experience. Now, when I say you lose everything, you do, but what you keep are the experiences and the knowledge of the game that you learn, and that will make you a better player as you go. The only way to get better at this game is to just die a whole bunch and practice and practice and practice and get yourself experience with how the game feels, understanding threats, when to run, when to fight, when to use a potion, and such. And we will talk through many of those decisions in the early game so that you can get your bearings, because I feel that lasting a little bit in the initial game and having good fundamentals are key to success in the game so that you can get further. This game is so hard, but what that means is when you do win, it feels fantastic. It's unlike anything else in gaming when you actually escape with the orb. Now, what does that mean? I said it's a single-player RPG, and by the way, single-player, you have one hero, but you can get allies and minions and things like that, but for the most part, it's a single-player game. The objective of this game is to go down into the dungeon, acquire 3 runes, use those runes to unlock the door into Zot's vault, go into Zot's special portion of the dungeon, and acquire his ultimate artifact, Zot's Orb of Power. You try to grab that orb, and then you try to run all the way back up to the first level of the dungeon and escape with that orb to win the game. If you can smash and grab that orb, you win. If that sounds easy, it is not. You are fighting through hordes of enemies that are extremely challenging, intelligent, and they will make your life misery, even if you're an experienced player. But there's a lot you can do to understand the ins and outs of what good decision-making is like in this game to increase your chances of survival and getting that orb, okay? Now, 3 runes is the basic victory. It's the minimum victory. And you might see online when you read about the game that people are going for extended victories, which means you're trying to get even more runes. There are 15 total runes that you can get, at least that I'm aware of as of this recording. And that would be a complete victory or a 15 rune win, which is what some people call it. Now, other people have different criteria, for what a complete victory is like, but that's one of the highest accomplishments that you can get. And that is an even bigger challenge once you are getting 3 rune victories more readily. But let's walk before we can crawl, you see what I did there, and dive in to what I recommend for a starting or returning player. And what I would say to you, pick something from this column, and quite honestly, what we're going to focus on is one of the most tried and true combinations in the game, which is a Minotaur as our species, okay? Minotaur is a great choice for a starting species because it is extremely strong, and it has very, very few drawbacks beside a low intelligence and not being able to wear a helmet. Those 2 small drawbacks are absolutely eclipsed by the Minotaur's aptitudes for skills and its strength and hit points. Now, that is my recommendation, but if you want further information, what you can do is you can use the % key and click List Aptitudes, okay? And from this screen, you will see an explanation of the aptitudes in the game, and every species strengths and weaknesses with these aptitudes. So, for example, Minotaur, which is right here, gets a +2 aptitude with armor, a +1 aptitude with dodging, -1 at stealth, you are not sneaky, all right, +2 for shields, Invocations and evocations are, you know, right in the middle there, -1. You get 10% more hit points than everyone else. You're bad with magic, and we're not going to be really doing magic. Your will save is average. And then when you get into this screen, this is where Minotaurs shine. They are good with basically every weapon. They're good with fighting, which gives you more hit points. They're good using just about every weapon that there is in the game. They're exceptional at certain weapons, okay? And they're good even with ranged weapons. Now, when you get into their spell casting, you'll see they have horrible minuses. And you're not going to be casting spells with this build, and you'll see why in a moment. But really, what this does for us when we start out in this complicated game is it simplifies things dramatically. We're going to just take out an entire section of the game, which is using magic for now. Now, magic is one of the best things about the game. It's super fun. The spells are really satisfying and interesting. But when you're starting out, it's nice to just limit what you have to consider, and Minotaur does that for you. Now, if you want to choose something else or just experiment, go for it. That's awesome. Do it. But I'm going to be showing you this particular build because it will be very, very effective at the beginning of the game. So we're going to click Minotaur, and then now we're going to come to this screen right here where it says, please select your background. Background is like your job, your profession, your class, okay? And you're coming into the dungeon with some kind of training, and this training gives you your starting equipment, your starting skills, and a sense of where you want to go. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't completely pivot and shift. That's one of the beautiful things about the game. This is where you start, but you can totally trend somewhere else if you like, all right? Now, the backgrounds are categorized by class type, so the warrior types, the religious types, the zealots, the casting type, the mages, the hybrid types, the warrior mages, and then there's these adventurers, which are like treasure seekers or inventors, things like that. And these are just absolutely kind of more advanced, fun, flavored things. But for us, we're going to be choosing a warrior because we're good at melee. Now, you could totally pick fighter if you want. Fighter is cool because you start with a shield right away, and you start with some heavier armor. There's nothing against fighter, but what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going with a berserker. The 4 classes that you see here, or the 4 backgrounds that are in the zealot category, have the benefit of starting with a god worshipped. Now, normally, if you don't pick one of these, you start with no religious affiliation, and you have to find an altar to devote yourself to a deity in the game and start to build up rapport or piety so that you could use abilities and gain benefits and powers from that god. If you pick one of these, you start with a god and some piety already built in. And we're going to pick Berserker. Berserker believes in Trog, which is a god that hates magic. You're actually, if you worship Trog, you are not allowed to use magic. So that's a huge drawback, but for us, we already saw that Minotaur is terrible with magic, and we weren't planning on it anyway, so we can lean into that, and the benefit of basically foregoing magic are the abilities of the Berserker, and first and foremost, that is the ability to go berserk in combat. It is a kind of button that you press when things are getting difficult or when you have a strong enemy ahead that will all but ensure victory against one foe that's reasonable for you and get you out of a lot of jams that would kill many other characters early in the game. Early in the game, there's going to be a lot of deaths that you have due to out-of-depth monsters, like monsters that are just way too hard for where you're encountering them in the dungeon, or certain named elite enemies that are just stronger than other enemies, or just unfortunate luck where you didn't find any armor or a good weapon or something, and you're just fighting an ogre who is really strong and wants to crush you, and you don't have any way to overpower them. Berserk just gives you that. So we're going to be a berserker. So once you pick Berserker, all right, we are a Minotaur Berserker. This is one of the easiest, strongest starting combinations you can pick, and what doing this will allow you to accomplish in the game is, like I said, get your feet wet. Like, you're going to get into the game. You're going to be able to actually play the game for a while, see a lot of it, make decisions, pick up gear, understand the controls, get a feel for things, and then from there you can branch out and just try other stuff, all right? But this is a great way to just learn the basics. Now, you get to choose what weapon you start with, and you could pick any of these, okay? You'll see in parentheses to the right of the short sword, the mace, the hand axe, are listed our character's aptitudes with that weapon. So we're really good with mace, hand axe, spear, and falcon, but we're not good unarmed or short sword. And when I say not good, I mean we're actually pretty good. We're just not as good. But we're not going to be picking any of those, okay? Now, I'm showing you the game, and this is the online client. If you're playing offline, it will look slightly different. I'm using the mouse to just kind of move around, but you'll see that there are letters associated with all of these. You can use only keyboard, and honestly, when I'm playing most of the time, I just use the keyboard, but that's because I have all of the key commands memorized. I've played for so long, but using the mouse is something that they've worked on integrating over the years, especially in the online version, and it's a nice little way just for me to highlight things for you. So do whichever you like. But both are viable. Now, you can also pick a random weapon if you just want to be like, hey, who cares? Or a recommended random choice where they make a choice based on your better stuff. But what we're going to do is make a decision between mace or axe. Those are the two strongest. For me, spear is cool because you get reach. Swords are generally poor in the game, although I understand for the next version that's coming out, they're trying to rework them and make them better. It's not that they're decidedly bad, it's just that compared to mace or axe, they are not as good. We're going to pick axe, okay? So the reason we're picking axe is not only do we get a +2 aptitude with axe, but axe has a special ability called cleave, which means that if you are facing multiple enemies in your field of combat, okay, so enemies that are adjacent to you, you hit your primary target and you hit the targets that are around you for some lesser damage. So you, like, let's say you hit your primary target for 70% damage, and then you hit all of the other targets for 30% damage. This allows you to just chop through hordes of weaker enemies and stay alive. It's just a great thing to have at your disposal for when you get overwhelmed, to just know that, hey, I'm going to go berserk. I'm going to start swinging an axe, and I'm basically just spinning around with my axe and hitting everything, all right? So that is the kind of advantage of the axe, and we're going to pick it. Then you're going to get into a screen that looks somewhat like this one, and I say somewhat like this one because, well, this game is procedural, as I mentioned before. And let me talk to you a little bit more about what that means. So procedural means it's randomized, but it's randomized following a set of instructions. So there are constraints to how your game will unfold. Your level 1 will look different than mine. This actual screen might look the same, but for the most part, it will play out differently than mine, but there are certain things that are fixed. So the dungeon, for example, is always 15 levels deep, the main dungeon. That's always the case. It's not randomized how deep the main dungeon is. But each floor is randomized. The locations of sub-branches and other places to go, like the Ecumenical Temple, where you can pick a god, or the Orcish Mines, or the Lair, the fixed branches of the dungeon are in a variable range as well. So, like, let's say for the Ecumenical Temple, it could be from levels 4 to 6, although that changes, and we'll look at that in a moment. But it's between a range of levels, and so you might find it like on level 6, you might find it on level 7, just depends. Now, what I'm looking at is what's called a fixed vault. It's like a kind of a pattern that they've developed with these transparent glass windows and walls and fountains and things, and you might actually see this. Like, this is a instance or a blueprint that can occur at different points within the game. And so even though it's randomized, sometimes you'll find like these little fixed elements that people have handcrafted, and then they have a chance of spawning within the dungeon. So that might look the same, but for the most part it's random, all right? And that's what gives the game the fun, the fact that it is randomized. Now, right away, there are some things that I want you to take into account as you look at the screen. The central bigger part of the screen is the play field, all right? My character is standing on the entrance into the dungeon. You can see kind of like sunlight peering out through the hole that comes into the dungeon, and that's going to be the only time we see that unless we get strong enough to make it back. Your character sprite is updated based on what equipment you're wearing. So I kind of have some like animal hides on, like Tarzan, and I have an axe in my hand. I'm a Minotaur with horns on my head. You can see that represented there. Below the main screen is a window that displays all of the text of the game, description, things that people are saying, combat information, etc. Important information the game is telling you comes in yellow, where it says like welcome, everyone else who sought the Orb of Zot has failed, will you be different? So there's like some times when the game talks to you directly, and it will be in kind of that yellowish text right there. Trog says kill them all, it's in all red. That's text from our god. It's red because Trog is considered an evil god. And then there's some other description here that is very helpful that we want to look at. It says press question mark for a list of commands and other information. So if I press the question mark, you're going to see this key right here, and this is phenomenal, okay? This is like every single thing you could want to understand about the game is here. You can look through the manual. You can look through the commands. There's even a quick start guide. There's an FAQ. There's an amazing amount of assistance that you can get in this screen. Additionally, I recommend if you have any questions to ask, first of all, you can just type them in the comments below, and I'd love to help you out. But also, if you want real-time advice, you can come to the Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup Discord, and there's like people there all the time, including bots that can just give you some information and things if you're curious, and developers and experienced players who can help you out. There's a wiki for the game also, the Crawl Wiki, which has great information. Sometimes it's not always up to date, so you have to be careful about that. It might be for a previous version, but usually it's helpful. And also on our Discord, which is free to join and love to chat with you there, we have a section for roguelikes where you can ask questions if you're looking for help. So there's no shortage of people looking to help you out. But what I recommend is pushing question mark to get to this screen, and then if you push question mark again, you get this, which displays a list of all of the key commands in the game. So I'll mention these as we go, but you can just always find them here, and there's all kinds of helpful things that you might not have understood otherwise that you'll see given, and you can use these as you're playing the game. There's usually more than one option for some interactions, and you'll see them listed with a slash between them if there's more than one. All right, so I'm going to push escape to get out of that. Now, in the upper right, you'll see in gold your name, okay, your species, and your kind of like deity. Also, next to your name, it says the Chopper. That is your title, and it's based on your highest skill. So I'm good with axes, so I'm a chopper. I have displayed here 1 pip out of 6 pips possible for piety. This is like how much favor I have with my god, and this is important as we start to understand what powers we can get based on how we're pleasing our god with our performance and what we're doing. Here's our health. I am at full health, and it's also represented visually by this green bar. Here's my magic. I have none, and it's going to be that way for quite some time. This is my AC, my armor class. I'm at 2. My EV is my evasion. I'm at 12. SH is kind of like your shield level, your ability to block. Okay. I'm experience level 1. I'm 0% of the way to the next level. I am making this much noise, which this is 0 noise, by the way. I am equipped in my hand with a hand axe, and I have no projectile weapons quivered to throw. I have 21 strength, which, hey, that's huge. We're a Minotaur. I have 4 intelligence, which is diabolically low. Okay, I can barely read, if that, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. We're here to just absolutely get blood for the blood god with our axe. I have 9 dexterity, which is reasonable, but we're not too worried about dexterity. I am in the main dungeon on level 1, and time is expressed in how many turns have passed since you've started, and it's 0.0 because I haven't done anything. Now, if I move 1 square to the right or the east, you'll see that time has gone up by 1, meaning it takes 1 turn for this character at this speed to walk. Other characters move faster. Some characters move slower than that, okay? So that's how much time within the game it takes for me to move 1 tile, all right? Now, below all of this character information here, you will see a mini-map of the game, and there is a white dot on this mini-map that is me, and the teal dot is a staircase up, and in this case, it is a staircase out. Now, if I were to go on that and then walk up, I could just quit the game if I just was terrified and wanted to lose instantly, but I don't. I'm going to go through. All right, now, that's this screen, which you're going to be spending a lot of time with, and we will discuss more of it as it evolves. I'm going to now push I to bring up my inventory, and you can see I come into the dungeon with only 2 things. This animal skin and my hand axe, and that's it. So when you are a berserker, you start with terrible armor, and that's one of the drawbacks of it, but quickly we're going to find better armor to replace that, so let's not be too concerned, okay? I am now going to just give you some explanation of some other screens of interest for you as you move around. I'm going to push Shift 5, okay? And this brings up a pretty good reflection of our character, where you can see all of our primary stats listed up here in brown. And you can see actually how much game time has passed, minutes and seconds of this character's life. You can see in this column where it starts off with hand axe, everything that I'm equipped with in every slot. And then if I don't have something in that slot, you can see it's grayed out, but it will tell you what it's supposed to be. Like I don't have a cloak or gloves. Helmet restricted means that's where my helmet would go, but because I have horns, I can't wear every type of helmet. In fact, I can only wear hats, basically. Now, to the left of this, you'll see all of my resistances, and these become increasingly important as you get further in the game, because enemies will start doing abilities that do, I don't know, fire damage, or cold damage, or negative energy, or poison you, or electrocute you, or corrode your armor, or mind control you, on and on and on. And so you'll need resistances here, and our fire means resist fire, and you can get protection from 1 up to 3 pips that reduces incoming fire damage based on how many of these you have filled in, and the returns are diminishing, okay? Generally, it's advised to try to get 1 pip in as many of these as you can, and then 2 pips for example, if you're trying to beat the game and fight orbs of fires, is 2 pips on resist fire is recommended, but not 100% necessary. Below that, you'll see my hit point regeneration and my magic point regeneration, which is described based on how much I get back each turn. And then these are telling you, like, can I see invisible? Do I have faith, which means this is a bonus I would get on an item that gives me more piety from my god? Do I have spirit shield, which means when I get hit, I would take the damage from my mana pool and my health pool? Do I reflect incoming damage, incoming ranged attacks. Do I have harm on, which means I do more damage, but I take more damage? And do I have rampage, which is an ability that basically means like I charge at people and can knock them backward. Then it tells you down here any status effects you have, and then these are like kind of mutations or physical features of your character that are reflected in the game. So I have horns. I have horns level 2, which means I can't wear a helmet, but I can damage people with my horns by headbutting them. I can give them a retaliatory headbutt, and that's hilarious. All right, I'm going to push escape to get out of that. And that's a good look at some of the screens that you're going to need to know for checking on your character, okay? Now let's talk about movement. So you can move around using the arrow keys, all right? Or you can use the numpad keys, or you can click with the mouse, left click the square that you want to move to. It can either be in front of you, or I can click over here, and then you'll see my character walk. Now, you see how I walked like really fast? That is the speed that we changed in the RC, and the footprints show my path, but I basically almost teleported to that spot. Now, you can't do that if you see a threat or an enemy. The game will stop you, but it's a way to move around really quickly. Okay. Now, I don't personally do that. I usually take it one square at a time using the arrow keys, but that's just me. Okay, so I'm going to walk over here, and there's a few things that I can see already on the map because there are windows on these walls. So I'm going to push the X key, all right? And this lets you look around. You'll see that the square around my character has changed to yellow corners, meaning I'm looking at that square. And I can move this around now, this box, with the arrow keys, and it will tell me what's on the tile that I'm looking at, right? So this is a translucent stone wall, which is why I can see this scroll lying on here. And it says items here in the log below, a scroll labeled Hiheim Rune Pew, okay? And it's going to be randomized every time. You don't know what scrolls are when you pick them up. You have to basically read them to identify them, and reader beware, okay? There's also some plants in here I can look at. There's a fountain. There's 7 gold coins down here, okay? So you could use this, and the game is paused while you're doing this, to look around at things and get more information. When you're done, you can just push X to close that. Another thing I want to tell you about the log is you can push Control P, and it will bring up this screen, which shows you every single piece of information the game has told us since we started. So you can scroll through this if you miss anything to get further elaboration, and you can move up and down on that. I'm going to open the door by just walking into it, or you can push Shift-O to just stand in place and open the door, and then Shift-C to close the door. But I'm going to walk into it, and it does the same thing as Shift-O. Now, I'll tell you this. Closing a door can be quite good in this game. If you're fighting a creature that doesn't have hands and can't open or close doors, well, if you close the door and there's no other way in, you are safe until you open the door. So it's a nice way to, like, shut yourself off from enemies like this frilled lizard that can't open the door, for example, okay? So, when you encounter an enemy, like I am right now, I've walked over and I can see the frilled lizard. This area of the screen below the minimap displays shown enemies, okay? It gives you a picture of the enemy and the name of the enemy, and then the color of the text that the enemy's name is in is reflecting the power level that the game is giving the enemy based on our own level, okay? So this frilled lizard is like gray text, meaning this is not hard at all. This is like a joke for our character, all right? So I'm going to swing at this frilled lizard, okay? And you can do that by left-clicking on it, or you can just walk into it, which is what I normally do. Or, if there's only one enemy and you're not too worried about it, you can push the tab key, and that is auto attack. And it will attack at whatever auto-targeted enemy is near you. If you are adjacent to it, you'll just stand in place and swing at it. But if there's only one enemy on the screen and it's far away, then pushing tab will like have your character walk toward it, take the best or fastest route to it, and fight it. If there's multiple enemies, then you'll walk toward whichever enemy the game has automatically selected for you. Okay? So you might want to use more fine-tuned controls when a situation like that arises. Now, I'm going to push tab, and you can see I swung, and it says you barely missed the frilled lizard, and he missed us. So I'm going to push it again, and we missed, and it hit us for 1 damage. And I'm going to push tab again, and boom. We hit it, and we killed it, okay? And Trog accepts our kill. Our god likes blood and carnage and violence. So whenever we kill things, Trog is happy. So we're going to be getting our piety very easily because of that. Now, you'll see that below my character there is a green box, all right? And that means that that is the scroll that I stepped on. I couldn't pick it up because we saw an enemy. Picking items up off the ground does take a turn, so the game will not automatically pick up an item if there is an enemy on the screen because it doesn't want you to get hit while you're picking it up. Now, if you want to do it anyway, you can press G to just pick it up or to like look at the ground and pick stuff up. All right. Another thing that we need to just talk about right now is you'll see that we killed the lizard and we got 8% of the way to 2nd level by doing that. Not only do you raise experience, which gives you more hit points and, you know, potentially stat points at certain thresholds, you also are raising your skills based on what you're training. So you're getting experience points that go to your skills as well. And let's talk about our skills. I'm going to push M to bring up the skill screen, and it looks like this. When you start out the game, you have a set of skills that reflect what you can do with your character based on your equipment and just based on a certain set of skills that are inherent to everyone. Now, right now, every skill that we're training has a little plus symbol by the letter. So we're actually training 6 skills: fighting, maces and flails, axes, polearms, armor, and dodging. Okay? That is bad. Now, I will point out that polearms and maces and flails are in green and have the plus sign, but we're not actively training them. They are getting the benefit from being related to axes. So they, like, some of the weapon skills have kind of like adjacent or affiliate skills that train with the primary skill. So you get some experience into these categories because you're training axes, all right? But to understand where my experience is going, you'll see that I'm right now training fighting and axes with 40% of the experience going to these and only 10% going to armor and dodging. Now, I recommend immediately changing this to be manual skill mode. So right here, it says auto or manual, and you change it by pushing the / auto manual. If I go to manual, you'll see that it levels this out. It gives no priority for these skills. They're all now getting equal experience, okay? That's the first step. And then now, I'm going to turn off some of these skills. I do not want to train dodging right now. I'm going to push G twice until it's grayed out, and you'll see that no experience under the train column is going into dodging. I also don't want to train armor right now, and I don't want to train fighting. In fact, all I want to be doing is training axes. I recommend when you start out with a melee character and you're fighting to just train your weapon at the beginning, because your skill with your weapon determines accuracy and also how fast you swing your weapon, okay? So that's what we're going to be doing. So once you change this to manual mode, train only axes, and I would train this for a while. You know, you could train it all the way up to like level 10 and then consider turning on some other skills unless you have different plans. But that's kind of what I like to do early on, is just focus on my weapon so I can hit things and hit them quickly, because the faster they die, the better my chance of staying alive. All right? So now, whenever I get experience, it's going to be leveling up my axe skill. Right now, the skill of my axes is 3.6, and I have +2 aptitude, which means like I get a boost to the amount of experience coming in based on this aptitude. All right, and I pushed escape to get out of that screen. So now we are training axes. We've killed a lizard, and we are injured. So what we need to do when we get injured is to rest, okay? And I'm going to push the 5 key, all right? Just number 5, and you will rest until healed. And basically that means you'll just wait on that square, and your hit points will regenerate based on how many turns it takes using your hit point regen to get your hit points back. That's really the main way that you will heal in this game, all right? So we've done that, and now that we're healed, I'm going to look around. Now, I could walk around manually just pushing the arrow keys, which is totally cool. You can do that. And we found a ball python already. So now that we found a ball python, I'm going to fight this guy. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let him come to me, okay? So the ball python is easy. His text is in gray. And I'm going to push the S key. That just lets you wait on the square you're on. So it's basically like past the turn. You wait. And I'm going to wait until he moves towards me. Wait, push S again. And then now he's here. And he moved and he hit me. And that's because he's fast. He's a snake. So he moves fast. And even when I'm waiting, he kind of gets a preliminary attack on us. And that's okay. I'm going to hit him with my axe, and he has constricted us. It says the ball python grabs you, which means like he's wrapped around us, and you can see I have a status ailment of constriction, and if I mouse over this, it says I'm being constricted by an enemy, and I'll take damage over time. I can't move away from this enemy, which means there's no running, and I can't blink away either, which, like, I can't even use a scroll to blink away. So I'm going to just swing at this guy again, and he's dead. It's not a big threat. It's like, it's annoying that he does that, but when it's just him, it's not an issue. Now, if he constricted us in place, and there was some bigger threat that we needed to run from, well, that's an issue, and we need to reevaluate the situation at that time. But we don't need to do that, and I'm going to rest. And we're at full. Now, in addition to moving with the arrow keys, you can also push the O key to auto-explore. I'm going to push it right now. Boom. And you can see my character start running around. These footprints trace my trail that I've taken. Okay, if I want, I can push Shift-X to zoom out and see where I came from. And you can see I came from all the way over here, and now I'm here. And then you just push Escape to get back to this normal zoom level. And auto-explore will keep going until you find either an enemy or something of note. Now, I believe that it has stopped because either we found these gold coins, but no, it's because of the staircase. So we found a staircase. So that's the staircase down. And if we want to go to Dungeon 2, we can just hop down that level, but I don't recommend that at all. Early in the game, I recommend trying to get as much experience as you can by clearing dungeon levels, if at all possible, okay? The asterisk that you see in the upper right corner of the staircase means that we have not gone down this staircase. It's a fresh staircase, so we have no idea what's down there at all. We've never used it before. All right? So we're looking around. We see a stairwell, and I don't think this is worth stopping for. It's good to know, but we can just push O again to continue auto-exploring, and we will. We see a quokka up here, and I can push tab if I want to just walk toward it. And push tab again, and we're fighting. Now, the reason I can walk toward it confidently using tab right there is because I can see a fair amount of the screen, and this is a very low threat. But if I was at all concerned about this enemy, the best practice would be, once we've spotted each other, to just back into this hallway and let it come into my choke point and fight it here protected. It's always a best practice to try to fight things one-on-one and with protection and a possible escape route in case things get out of control, because they can escalate very quickly, and once you die, it's over. So we're going to just fight this guy. There's no need to do anything fancy given the quokka, and we just blast him, and he's gone. And we'll just keep exploring. And there's some gloves. Now, we don't have any armor on our hands, so this is fantastic. So I'm going to walk over to these gloves. You'll notice the green box indicates what you're set to auto pick up. And so you auto pick up gold, scrolls, potions, things like that when you walk over it. But generally, armor and weapons, you need to tell the game, hey, I want to pick this up. So you just push G, and if there's only one item on the ground, you'll pick up the gloves. And now we can go into our inventory, and you'll see, indeed, we do have a pair of gloves under the armor category, but it's not green because you can see it's not worn. In parentheses, it's not worn. So if I click on this, I can get a full description of it, and this tells you like what's going on here, which is basically that it gives you base armor rating 1, okay, which is important for some calculations into how the game does damage. These numbers may change over time, but there's armor class, and then there's guaranteed damage reduction. And guaranteed damage reduction has to do with your base armor and the GDR of the equipment. Now, as far as I understand it, gloves and accessory items like helmets, cloaks, they don't contribute to your GDR. It's just your body armor, but that may have changed since the last I looked at it. In general, the better your armor is, the better. What happens when you get attacked is you roll a die that is equivalent to your armor class. And so, like, if you have a 20 armor class, you would roll a die 20, and then you subtract that damage from incoming physical damage that's able to be mitigated. But there's other things that go into the mitigation that's just part of it. So you want a bigger number. Now, these gloves says base armor rating 1, which means they're going to give me 1 armor right now. But if I enchant them, I can make them gloves +2 at maximum, which would give me a total of 3 armor class. It also very nicely helps you right here with this line of text. It says, if you switch to wearing this armor, your armor class would increase by 1. It would go from 2 to 3. And then it gives you some other information. It gives you things that you can do. You can inscribe it, adjust it, drop it, or wear it, okay? And really, these are more advanced maneuvers that you may or may not be interested in doing. Adjust would be like if you want to set it to a keybind so you can quickly switch between different pieces of equipment. But right now, we're just going to wear it. So I'm just going to click on that with the mouse or just push W, and now we're wearing gloves. And you'll see if I go to Shift 5, in my glove slot, I'm wearing gloves, and my armor class has indeed gone up to 3. So I'm just going to keep searching, and I'll just run over that gold, and I'll pick it up. All right? So the game stopped again. There's an enemy and another staircase down. Here comes a giant cockroach. I'm going to just let it come to me, and I'm going to blast it. Our axe's skill has gone up to level 4. So skill ups are in this green text. Kill is in this dark red. This lighter red is for our deity. And you'll see that they kind of color code information for you. Like, the cockroach getting wounded reflects its level of damage, and it's another way to help you understand how hurt your opponent is. All right, so this hobgoblin is actually asleep. Okay, so the ZZ in the upper right corner means he's sleeping. And if you go into our Shift 5, you'll see that we have a stealth rating, and we have 1 pip out of 10. That means that, like, we're not super stealthy. I mean, we have hooves for feet, and we have, no training and skill, but we're somewhat stealthy. And so we're not making very much noise. Here's our noise indicator. We're just filling up the bottom of the bar. And because of that, enemies have a chance to just sleep. But as we get closer to them, every step we take, they get a chance to wake up based on the noise that we're making. And the hobgoblin woke up. Now, what's important to note about this is he woke up and he shouted. So you can see it says the hobgoblin shouts in the lower left, and then you hear an angry hiss. So when enemies are startled and can vocalize that, and they choose to, they can alert other enemies in the area of your presence. And if that enemy can hear it or cares, they might come investigate or come hunt you down. And in this case, a snake heard it, is angry that we're here, and is coming to attack us. 99.9% of the enemies or the things that you're going to find in this game are hostile to you if they're wandering around. If they are friendly to you, they will have a green circle around them, okay? So pretty much everything is going to fight you. So it's bad, and we just need to be ready for it. And we are. And there's 2 hobgoblins, so I kind of thought that was the first hobgoblin, but no, we got more than we bargained for. Now, we have 2 hobgoblins on the screen, which is indicated down here in the lower right, we see 2 pictures, 2 hobgoblins, but remember, the text is in this whitish, almost gray, which is telling us, hey, we're, you know, way stronger than these guys. This isn't too bad. Even so, like I said, best practice is to step back into this hallway and find a choke point. Now, the only real choke point for us is down here, because if I step on this tile, the enemy can come here and someone can come around and flank me. You'll notice that I don't pick up that gold because, as I said, the game does not do auto pickup while enemies are on the screen because it takes a turn to do it. So I'm going to step back. Now, for most enemies, you can do this. You can just walk back with them chasing you because you move at the same speed that they do. But certain enemies like bats or some spiders or snakes or things that are really, really fast, they will just outpace you, and you'll have to accept taking some damage for strategic positioning, but that's a calculation that you need to run. Like, is it worth it to take some hits to get into a better spot, or should you fight it there? For us, I'm just going to fight this guy right here, and we're just fighting each other. And I will mention, you'll see that it says, I furiously retaliate, okay? That means that, like, I have a chance, because of my horns, to retaliate an incoming hit from an enemy and headbutt them. And it's a free attack. It doesn't take any of my time. And it's pretty nice. It doesn't do a huge amount of damage, but it's cool. Now, you'll see that there's a little red bar below enemies that indicates their kind of estimated level of health, and it matches the text you see here. So after you hit an enemy, you'll get a kind of descriptive outline of the enemy's health status. So he's severely wounded, and the red bar is not exact. It's an approximation, but it just helps you visualize things. Now, if I were to go on the hobgoblin by using X and exploring around, you'll see that this guy, he is severely wounded in parentheses, so you can check the status of the enemy like that as well. All right, and I'm going to just hit him again. He's dead. And I'm going to hit this guy again, and he's dead. The frilled lizard has come around the corner. He had a question mark, meaning like he didn't know what was going on. He was just walking around. He wasn't asleep, but he wasn't aware of us. The question mark indicates like the enemy might be suspicious or is just doing its own thing, but doesn't care about you. If you see an enemy that's moving actively and has no ZZZ or no question mark, understand that it's coming at you. And then we're just going to wait for it by pushing S and bring it back into our kill zone. And I'm going to keep going around. Now that hiss actually might have been the lizard and not a snake. Not entirely sure what animal was making that noise, but probably that thing, now that I think about it, the frilled lizard. Okay, and we're going to just tab and fight this guy. He's hitting us a little bit, and look, if I keep pushing tab, I can't anymore. The reason is we changed our config file so that tab for auto fighting is no longer an option once I drop below 80% health, and I've done that. Okay, so you'll see on my health bar, I have dropped down to 15 of 19 health. All right, the most recent hit that you took is indicated in this kind of red number to just reflect like, hey, you lost that much health recently. But we've been hit a couple of times by this guy. So at this point, we need to manually fight by just walking into it or running away. But I love that option because it prevents us from fighting too far, from going outside of our depth and killing ourselves. And we leveled up to level 2. And what that means is we get more hit points. So you saw I had 19 max. Now I'm up to 27 max, which is ridiculous. That's the beauty of the Minotaur. 10% bonus hit points, or really 10% more than average hit points, which is great. Stay alive longer. Okay, and we found ourselves a sling and a statue. All right, and here's a kobold. And we're just going to like, oh, he wants to throw stones at us. Okay, so I'm going to bring the kobold back around this corner then. So this is another choke point. It's a diagonal choke point. When you see squares like this in the game, you can pass through these by moving diagonally. And we're going to just go back up to here, and I'm going to wait for this kobold, push SSS. And the reason I'm doing this is because I don't want to give this guy any line of fire to hit me with his stone. I want to make it so he has to come at me at melee, and we did that. And he had a dagger, 2 stones, and his body, and we don't want any of that. So we'll just rest and continue exploring. Okay, so it's time to continue exploring, and there's a few more things I want to talk about in this tutorial before we finish. But I'd like to just clear out Dungeon 1 as we do that. Now, one thing is that you'll notice I have 2 scrolls that are unidentified, and I haven't read those to identify them, and I won't. I don't like to mess around with identifying scrolls that I don't know what they are until I have the dungeon clear. The floor that I'm on, anyway. And the reason for that is because I don't want to get teleported or injured from a scroll and then get into a bad situation. Alright, so we found an endoplasm. Now, endoplasms are usually pretty easy, but I will say that they can be hard because they have a attack that does cold damage. Now, you see me use X to kind of look around, but if you want to get more information, you can go to a tile and then push V, and then you get a breakdown of further information about your enemy. Now, this will help you evaluate what enemies that you can fight. I haven't really been looking at it too much because we've just been going by the color coding, and that will, is good superficially, but it's not always helpful enough. Now, on Dungeon 1, you basically are going to fight every single thing that you see, unless it's some named enemy that comes up as red or, something crazy that you just can't handle at the beginning stages with this character. Other builds, you might have other decision making, but with this character, you're going to kill everything on Dungeon 1. So there really isn't too much of a decision about its difficulty, but just about to educate yourself. This will become more important when you have to pick and choose your battles to figure out, do I want to fight here? Do I want to move? Do I want to run? Like, what am I up to? What am I going to do? So these are things to consider. Now, to make better decisions, you can look at this screen and get flavor text that also describes their abilities, some vague information, it's random, about how many hit points they have. This is an estimation of its armor class. The more of these plus signs, the higher it is. This is their evasion, and again, the more plus signs, the better chance they have to evade you. But then it gives you this more detailed explanation that about 14% of the time it's going to evade my hand axe, and it has no will save because it's mindless, like sludge. So mind-based attacks will probably not work against it. As it says right here, it is mindless. And probably not. I mean, they won't. All right, so it looks easy. The first line here tells you just kind of how it evaluates the enemy, and this also corresponds generally to its color coding. It's immune to acid and resistant to poison. So poison and acid not going to be very good against it. It can see you if you're invisible. Can't blind it. It's very small, and it can hit for up to 3 damage. Okay, so hitting for 3 damage is painful, given we only have 26 hit points. So there's that, but it's not the end of the world, and it has about a 45% chance to hit us, which is, definitely possible. Now, the other thing, though, you need to know about a creature is it might have abilities. Like this guy has freeze, and we can click on this, and it says it freezes an adjacent creature, dealing damage that bypasses your armor, and it can temporarily slow cold-blooded creatures. So it can only do this cold attack to you if you're adjacent, but it does 1 dice 5, meaning from 1 to 5 damage to you, and this red number in parentheses means its range. And another description of the range is here, and J means the enemy, and then the arrow means only 1 square away. Now, if it could hit you like 2 squares away, there would be some hyphens before this arrow to indicate how many squares the ability has in range, and this number would increase to show you it has more range. So, the reason I show you this is because endoplasms can hit you for a bunch of damage that's cold damage, especially if you happen to be a character that's like susceptible to cold for some reason. So you got to kind of watch out for these guys. They can hit you hard, but and they have a little bit of evasion, but overall, they're not too difficult. Now, you can push exclamation point to get a fun quotation that they've pulled from literature to apply to the ooze, just for some flavor text, if you'd like. And now I'm just going to hit it with my axe. And it's dead. And we're going to run around. And here's a bat. Now, bats are not hard, but they move very quickly and they're very evasive. So I'm going to try to hit it, but oh my god. What has happened to me? Well, guess what? I wasn't planning on this, but it'll be fun. It says, a sourceless malevolence fills the dungeon, and we fall into a shaft and drop 1 floor. Now, this is something that can randomly happen. They've been trying to ease this out of the game and make it less frequent, but it's called getting shafted, and it means what you think it does. You fall down a shaft, but you also are getting shafted. You're dropping blind into another level of the dungeon. Now, here we go, boom, and I'm here next to an adder, and you can see in the minimap, this is all I know about Dungeon 2, which I'm on now, and I don't have any way to know where the staircase is to get out of here. And there could be really hard enemies. I have no escape plan. So this is generally very bad. Luckily, we have some tricks up our sleeve, and we're going to show you those right now. So, adder, you'll see, is in yellow, because the adder can poison us. And if I were to, go X and then go V on the adder, you can see that it doesn't have any abilities, but it just poisons us with its regular bite attack. So it can bite for 5 damage, and it causes poisoning if any damage is dealt, and it has a 50% chance to hit us. So it looks dangerous. Yikes. It evades about 60% of our attacks, so it's small and quick. It has 11 hit points, double what we saw on the last endoplasm, basically, and it's really quick. So, just as a side note, by the way, all reptiles are cold-blooded and can be slowed by cold attacks, but we don't have that. So what we really want to worry about here is poison. Poison can cause damage over time that, if you don't have the means to cure it, can kill you. And really, there's a few means in the game, most commonly the potion of curing, but as you can see, we have no potions to drink. I only have a couple of scrolls. So, there's that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to step back onto this gold, and then I'm going to just push A to bring up my abilities, and we're going to show you Berserk for the first time. Now, Berserk is our creme de la creme ability for taking on a difficult enemy and getting out of trouble, but it comes with amazing drawbacks, okay? So Berserk is something that you do, and it gives you huge advantages, but at the cost of just about everything else. So you do it sparingly when you know that it will ensure your victory, or you have no other option, but you need to do it in controlled circumstances, and I'll show you why. So if I wanted, by the way, when I push A, I could just use the ability by pushing A again to go Berserk, and you'll see it costs piety, meaning it didn't used to, but they changed it more recently to do that. So, like, if you have no piety with Trog, like Trog doesn't like you, he won't let you go Berserk anymore. So you can't just do it forever because you will run out of piety eventually, but generally, in my experience, this is never an issue because you're killing stuff, and Trog likes you killing stuff, so you get piety from that. So as long as you're not going Berserk on, like, every creature, you should be okay. I don't recommend doing that anyway. And then it says over here, failure. We have a 7% chance to fail using the ability, which is pretty low. It's not that big of a deal. We just use it again if we failed. But if I was here and I wanted to know more information, I can push exclamation point or question mark, and then now it says up here, ability describe what? We'd say Berserk, and then it tells us what Berserking does. So it gives us more health, makes us faster and attack faster and do more damage. But if we leave combat, we will not be Berserk anymore, and we enter a state of exhaustion, which is bad. But also, when you're Berserk, you can only attack. you can, it says right here, all other actions other than movement and melee combat are prevented. You can't drink a potion. You can't read a scroll. You can't use other special abilities. You are berserk. You're going absolutely bananas to kill the enemy and focusing only on that rage. So you can't do anything else. So that is the cost. It's high. Can't heal yourself. Can't do anything. You're going to fight to the death, basically. Once it expires, you'll be slowed and unable to berserk again for a short time. So this could be really bad if you don't plan this properly, because if your berserk runs out and you're surrounded by enemies and you're slow, they're going to get to attack faster than you. You can't really run away from them unless you have a blinking or a teleport scroll or something. So that's a problem, but it's worth it because you won't die in combat. And so most of the time this is a good decision if you are facing something really formidable and you have put yourself in a good position on the map. The piety cost is small, by the way. So here we go. I'm going to go berserk right now, and the reason I'm going berserk now, all right, is because it takes a time to go berserk, so he will get to move in on us, and then now we're berserk. The screen is red. It shows us underneath that we're berserk. We can mouse over this to get even more description. You're hasted, you deal increased damage, and you have increased health, which is great. So we're going to swing at this adder and kill it in one shot. Here's what happened, actually. We slashed it, and we almost killed it, and then it tried to hit us, but we killed it with our retaliatory headbutt, which is hilarious. Now, the reason we do that is because the adder is tough, and we don't want to get poisoned and die. And we killed it so fast that it didn't even get to poison us. You can see we had 26 hit points. Now we have 39 hit points. Our hit points are in blue because they've been augmented by the ability. This is a temporary augmentation. They will go away when we leave berserk, okay? But it takes the hit points away from the temporary hit points first. So, you know, if I go down to whatever my max... The bonus hit points was, it's not like when berserk wears off, I die from losing health. It will take the temporary hit points first, so you don't have to worry about that. Now, what we do have to worry about is that a rat has come around the corner. Luckily for us, a rat is easy even if we were not berserk, but it's there. So what we want to do is, I'm going to move into this square, and it has moved up on us, and now I'm going to swing and kill it. Now, at this point, here's what you do with berserk. We're done. We don't see any enemies, and we have to take a chance and go back into this corner and wait one. And you see it says here you feel a strong sense of urge to attack something. We're going to wait again by pushing S. The berserk is wearing off. You can see it has changed color over here. It's fading out, and now one more turn and we've lost it. So that was about 3 or 4 turns out of combat, and we lost berserk. Now we have this status effect, which means we can't go to berserk until it wears off, and we are slowed, which means everything takes 50% longer. And what we're going to do here is we're just going to rest. I'm going to push 5, and even though I'm not getting health back, I'm just waiting until these status effects, which will wear off over time, wear off. So now we are no longer slowed. I'm going to push 5 again, and now we can go berserk again, and we're good. So you kind of need a place to hide and take a nap after you go to berserk. Now I'm going to explore. Here's a quokka. It sees us. I'm just going to let it come back here. And it hit us, and we'll just rest and explore. Here's a hobgoblin. We'll come back here, let it walk up to us. It hit us, and here's a kobold. We're going to walk back. It didn't see us, by the way. And let's see. Here comes the kobold now. And it doesn't have anything to throw at us, mercifully, so we'll just kill it. And we'll just work things back into our little murder hallway and explore. Now, what we're really, really trying to find here is a staircase out. I'm going to pick up these stones, G, and then I'm going to push A to pick up the stones, push Enter, and then I'm going to push capital Q, Shift Q, and I'm going to quiver, and it tells you you can quiver an action, and I'm going to quiver the stones by selecting that. And then now, when I push F, I can, like, throw a stone at somebody. Quiver lets you quiver a projectile weapon, or a thrown weapon, or an ability. You get to do all kinds of fun stuff with it. So right now, for example, I could throw a rock at the kobold. I push F, I target him automatically, I push F again, and just try to throw stones at him. They didn't hit, they did nothing, but it's a fun little extra ranged attack to do while you're just waiting for guys to come up on you. Now, you don't want to do it when they're too close because it does take time. So if they're fast, they could move on you. Oh, here we go, staircase. I'm going to immediately run to this staircase. There's an adder, which is an absolute shame, but there's not much I can do. I'm going to have to go down, and let's talk about staircase mechanics. So I'm going to go up the stairs right here to go back to Dungeon 1. Everything that is living, that is adjacent to you, will most likely come up the stairs and follow you. Certain undead things will not. Skeletons and things like that. But living stuff will. So this, I'm going to go up the steps, and this adder will come up the stairs with us. And you can see that the adder attacked us, but he didn't do any damage to us. When you're going up the stairs, it takes time, and basically everybody at the bottom and the top of the steps is going to get a free attack on you. It's super painful, but it's how you get out of bad situations, so it's just what you have to accept. We're going to go berserk, and oh, hilarious. We killed it with the headbutt, again. So we killed the guy with the headbutt, and I didn't even have to attack. And now we're level 3. When you get level 3, you will get a status increase to pick strength, intelligence, or dexterity. Guess what we're going to pick? We are a Minotaur Berserker. We're going to pick strength, and we actually get double strength. They have changed this recently. If you're an older player, you no longer get a stat raise every 3rd level. You get a double stat raise on 3rd level and then 9th level, okay? And then I believe 15th level. It like starts skipping like that. So they did that, I think, to give you a more appreciable bonus that you can see. So right now, we just went up from 21 to 23 strength, which is great. I'm going to rest and get rid of my Berserk and my Slow. And we're going to continue exploring Dungeon 1. I'm not going back to Dungeon 2 because for a variety of reasons. Number one, there could be tougher enemies there, which enemies get progressively more difficult as we go down. What is this guy hitting me with? He has a +4 short sword, so he's actually doing good damage to me. If he were to hit me again, I would go Berserk, but he didn't. I'm going to go over here and just fight this guy, the Dart Slug. The Dart Slugs have a ranged attack. All right, so there's a +4 short sword, which we could equip that if we wanted to fight with that. I don't, but you could if you wanted. And by the way, there's no reason to pick up items you're not going to use in this game, really, because you can't sell stuff. So, and you have a limited inventory space. It's pretty generous, but just, you know, leave it there. You can always come back and get it later, or search and find it to get it later if you need it. For example, where's that bat? He went away. Or did we kill him with a headbutt or something? He looks like he's gone. And I'm going to search, and we're done exploring. Now, I could check the combat log. Yep, headbutt killed the bat. Sometimes if enemies disappear and you're not sure why with a Minotaur, it's because you headbutt it. There you go. It's just an automatic reaction. All right, let me talk about two things before we end this first episode of the tutorial. First of all, if I wanted that +4 short sword again, and I was ashamed that I didn't pick it up, you can push Control F to search, and I could just say short sword. I could type that in there. Short sword. And it would tell me, hey, you mean the +4 short sword or just a regular one? And you could then be like, oh, yeah, I mean this one. And you could click on it, and then it'll show you like where it is on the map. And then you just push enter, and your character will walk to that tile. Boom, I'm there. So I could go pick it up again. Other thing I want to show you is now that the floor is clear, it's safe to read our scrolls. Relatively safe to read our scrolls. Get to full health. Be sure there's no enemies left, and let's read these things. I'm going to read the first scroll. It's a scroll of Identify. This is very good. And with Identify, I like to identify potions first. So we have one unidentified potion. I'm going to use it. And it's a potion of invisibility, which is not very useful to us, but that's okay. Now, all other potions of invisibility in the game are known to us, so we don't have to identify them anymore. I'm going to read this scroll, and it's a scroll of vulnerability, okay? This just means that us and everything else around us is more susceptible to will-based attacks. magical attacks, things like that, and that's good if you're doing that, if you're using will-based abilities, but we don't care. We have this stat bonus right here. This means like our willpower is divided by 2, making us more vulnerable to magical attacks. I'm just going to wait until that wears off. Then I'm going to read my last scroll. Bam. It's a scroll of fear. That is a good scroll if you're surrounded by enemies. It'll make them run away if they fail their check. And now we're done. And so every scroll that we've read, if we find another copy of it in the dungeon, we have it identified. Okay? So we have identified 1 potion, we've read all of our scrolls, and we're done with Dungeon 1. We talked about how to explore automatically with O, how to automatically fight with Tab, how to look at our inventory with I or Shift 5, how to pick stuff up off the ground with G, how to use X to look around, and V to get more description, and we talk about Berserk. Also, I just want to say, because we identified our invisibility potion, you can see up here, we now have a visualization of our invisibility potion as something we can do. This is newer to the online interface, and you can click up here to drink your potion, but it's a great just reminder of what options you have inside your bag. Like, oh, I have 1 invisibility potion if I need it, or something like that, okay? So everyone, this is a good start. You now have completed the first level of the dungeon. You understand the basics of moving, attacking, resting, investigating, and should have a nice feel for how to set up this character. We've leveled up to 3, we increased our strength, and I wish you the very best of luck as you explore the dungeon in Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup. If you would like more to this tutorial, please let me know in the comments below, or if you have any questions, please let me know, and I'd love to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.